Born and raised in Sicily, Italy, which is south of Italy. It's an island, um, basically by the water, the Mediterranean Sea, and that's where I was born. Long time ago. Long time ago.
Can't be that long
A
ago.
long time ago. A long time ago. But yeah, yeah.
I hear that there's good fishing in Italy, but I've been to Italy, but haven't fished
Well,
there.
if we're talking about freshwater in terms of a trout, there is a good fishing in Italy, that's for sure. Into the Alps and the Apennines mountain, good trout fishing, really good. Much more to be discovered. In terms of salt water, the Mediterranean, you have to do mainly blue water, which is the tuna, the magi and so forth and so on. Rather than that, the Mediterranean doesn't offer that kind of saltwater fly fishing that we have in the United States. So that's basically
Right.
it.
Gotcha. Now, you live in the United States now, which we will come back to. Can you tell me, before we go there, how you got into fishing in general?
Fishing in general started basically when I was probably 5 years old, if I remember correctly, with my father. Um, it was done for pleasure, and then might as well you catch a couple of fish. You put on the table. If you catch more than a couple of fish, you will share with next door neighbors. That's the way it used to be those days. Everybody shares what we got, and that's how it gets started. And well, fortunately, it happened in a way that it was a kind of uh, how can I say? I don't want to sound to be a bad guy, but my father used to have a partner when I was at that age, I think around five, and yeah, there was no room for me to go fishing with them.
Oh,
They didn't own a car, so they couldn't put me in a car. There was one of those Italian scooter, the Vespa.
yeah.
It was a room only for two, not for three, right? And to make a long story short, unfortunately, at some point, my father partner passed away, and all of a sudden, my father had no more partners in fishing. And guess what? I became his partner.
Oh, cool.
Hallelujah. You know what I mean? So, and that's how it really started and learning basically the basics. Fishing with bait, of course. There was no fly fishing for me those days, and not even later. Fly fishing was something that I discovered here in the United States.
Oh,
Not in
interesting.
not in Italy. No, 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 not in Italy. I had an idea about the fly fishing, but it wasn't a really clear idea what was all about. It mainly was for freshwater for trout, but I knew very, very, very little. For me, it was basically with bait and lures and nets and stuff like that. Just to go fishing and having a good time. That's pretty much was it. And then when I moved in the United States, the whole thing happened. And it was a really long journey for me. Very enjoyable. Very, very enjoyable. And, here we are. I mean,
But
here we are.
why the States? Tell me that story. I didn't know any of this. This is so interesting.
Well, it's a long story. I'm gonna make it very short. Those days, I used to be a chef in a major hotel in town. Uh, and my wife, Karen, came to the hotel where I was the chef and for an internal because she was going to a culinary institute. So here we are, me being the chef and having this uh, girl coming from the United States in my kitchen with my crew, in a training program. That's when everything, got set on fire. And yeah, yeah. A couple of years later, I moved in the United States.
Also, you
I
followed
was
her. You
yeah.
followed her to the States.
Yes, I did. I followed her to the state because I wanted to get married, of course, which we did in 1980. But to be honest, and if I didn't met if my wife, she never came in Sicily to do that training program in the hotel where I was a chef, I probably would never been in the United States, and I will never have done what I did on the fly fishing world for all these years. That is a reality, pretty much. If I wasn't here, I'm sure somebody else would have done what I did. There's no question about that. But it relates to the fact that from Sicily, I moved in the United States in New York and discovered fly fishing. And to me, it was like, gee, this is heaven. All this fish that we have over here, from trout, freshwater, and saltwater here in my home water in the Long Island Sound. It was a heaven. And that's what I started, basically.
Oh, okay. So tell me how you started, or well, how did you start fly fishing in the States? Do you remember your
Uh,
first time?
oh, yes, I do remember. So uh, through magazine, those days there was not really that many magazine available. Probably there was one or two. Uh, if I remember correctly, was the Fly Fisherman and probably and the Fly Tire, if I remember correctly. But honestly, I cannot remember. And they start to go through the magazine, mainly flipping the pages because my English those days was zero. I mean, still, as you can hear, not my language, let's put it this way, but flipping through the magazine and looking at the picture and start to looking in my vocabulary and dictionary to start to understand. And then, with the help of my wife, I started understanding more and more. I say, this is something I really like it. I mean, how is that possible? Putting a couple of feathers and a couple of deer hair or whatever in a hook, and then you fool the fish. Uh, Mainly because I always have done challenging things in my life, always. And that to me was a really, really intriguing. I said, I want to find out what it's all about. And that's when I started. And basically, I did start it, believe it or not, with trout fishing, not in saltwater. So in Long Island Sound, we do have a couple of spring creeks, and there is a trout. And the one in particular is they stuck that this spring creek, but also there is those days, not anymore as far I know, uh, sea running brown trout coming into the river as well. So I started over there with nymph, with the woolly bugger, and well, basically was wet fly fishing. Wasn't that much of a dry fly. It still is because those fish they are mainly stock fish. So did that, done that for several years, and then after that I say, gee, this is getting boring over here. I think I needed to investigate the different waters and see what's around, right? And again, with the help of my wife, I kind of discovered the Catskills water system, upstate New York, which is one of the best river systems we have in the United States when it comes to wild trout. There's no question about that. So go up to the Catskill and with my equipment, my Long Island equipment, the nymphing, the woolly bugger, the wet fly, and it was a disaster. Nothing really happens. How is that possible? I mean, I was killing those fish over there, and over here, I mean, I'm not capable to get any fish, and that really kind of you know to say as it is, it pissed me off.
Yeah.
I mean, how is that possible? This doesn't work like that. I have to get the fish, as I did in Long Island, and then it took me a while. And it really didn't happen. It didn't happen because, of course, we're talking about wild fishery, and it's different story. Mainly is dry fly fishing up into to the Catskills. I when I first started fishing over there, I caught it. I remember nice, beautiful rainbow trout in a stonefly because mainly I knew how to nymphing more than dry fly. I didn't know nothing about dry flies those days. So I got this beautiful rainbow trout, and it probably was 19, 20, 21. I don't remember. It was a nice, beautiful fish, healthy. And then I get this thing on my net. I say, gee, what is this? It's a bait fish because used to remember those days fishing along out, catching, 24, 26, 28 big brown because, again, those were stock fish. So I throw that fish in the water. I say, what the hell? This is not a good fish. I mean, this is a bait fish. Well, guess what? Until these days, I'm still looking for the fish I throw away there. You know, I have not been able to call him back, but it was a really interesting story for me. And I learned the fact that, it's not easy unless you put your brain to work. And then, of course, go back to the magazine, checking information, local people, and all that kind of homework. I learned that you want to catch fish over there, you have to learn the art of a dry fly. And that's what I did. So basically, get to work, dry fly necks, and the dubbing, and the quills, and the size of 12, 14, 16, very, very little flies, as you know. Uh, and then little by little, year after year, learning all the technique, and I was very happy start to catch fish. And that was it. I started my fly fishing in basically for trout. I didn't know nothing about saltwater at all. Zero. I had no idea what was going on here in my local water in the Long Island Sound.
Were you still a chef at this point?
At that point, I still was a chef. Yes, I was.
Right.
Working in a major hotel in New York City. I did that for probably another, let's see, another 15 years
Oh, wow.
after 1980. Yeah,
Which hotel was it?
yeah, yeah.
Is it a hotel we'll know?
One is the United Nations Plaza Hotel. The other one is the Ritz Carlton,
Oh my gosh.
right? Yeah, yeah. One of the major hotels. I was qualified enough to have a really good position on those hotels. I had my experience in Sicily. I was a chef on the hotels back in Sicily, so I was more than qualified to be working on those hotels. Of course, I had to speed up with my English, and that's what I did. I had to go to the school, and the usual routine. You gotta do what you gotta do.
You sound like a New Yorker, which you are. But what was it like transitioning into New York? I mean, did you have any major culture shock?
um, of course, yes, because just for you to know, my little town, those days until these days is still around 6,000 people. Everybody knew each other. Everybody cared about each other. And coming in New York, of course, and you just look up this way, and then you see what you see in New York in Manhattan. Well, it's a big shack, and it was a really intimidating to me. And although I do live in Queens, which is, by train, it takes me 20 minutes to get downtown Manhattan. But still, a lot of people, a lot of car, big building, stores everywhere. Everything is big. I mean, big, big. And to me, it was something that, I mean, how am I going to kind of handle this whole thing at once, right? So one of those things, you adapt. You adapt. There might be things that you don't like it, but you do what it needed to be done. I was happy to be here, my wife, and then of course kids coming along, and you build your life pretty much. So that's how I was on my transition, little by little, year after year. With the help of my wife, of course, and their family. My sister-in-law, father-in-law, mother-in-law, everybody. Family is family. You know the way it is.
Yeah.
So and I survived.
Right.
I survived.
It's funny. I made the mistake of driving downtown Manhattan once, and I will never do that again.
That's right. Never do that. Never, 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 never.
No, big mistake. Oh, I have a non-fishing question for you actually about Sicily.
Sure.
Is it true that in Sicily the pizza is so thin that you have to use scissors to cut it?
Not really. I don't think that's the case. A thin pizza comes actually these days. Those days, back my days, the pizza was not that thin as it is right now. Right now, everybody's a master pizzaiolo. Let's say it this way. Some want to make thinner than others, but no. To answer to your question, the pizza back home was not cut by scissors, uh, by knife, but not by scissors. Not even these days they use the scissors. Probably they will use a scissor at home, but no, not in a regular pizzeria.
Gotcha. Now, as far as fly fishing goes, how did you end up getting into the fly fishing industry?
Uh, when it says that when you looking for something and you cannot find it, what you're looking for, then you're gonna have to do that yourself. And that's pretty much what happened to me. Because and how did that happen was quite interesting. Going back, what I learned on fly fishing for trout in the system of state New York, and then all of a sudden I got friends, people that talk to me. Well, what are you doing? You're chasing those bait fish upstate New York. You have to travel 3 hours by car to get there, and then another 3 hours coming back home. I mean, why are you doing that? I said, what are you talking about? Let me understand, because I'm a little bit lost over here. So, well, come over here. Let me show you how this thing works. So I went with this fellow, and he showed me, hey, what's this all about, saltwater fly fishing, right in my own backyard. Right in my own backyard. I didn't know nothing about striped bass. Those days we used to catch a striped bass up to 36, 38-inch long fish. I mean, big fish, bluefish. I mean, I said, wait a minute, what is that I'm missing over here, right? So all of a sudden, the whole new doors open, and you want to know what is behind those doors. So, let me see what it is. So sure enough, I start to learn that process, the transaction to fresh water to salt water, which is, as you know, is totally different. It's totally different. So here it goes. Heavier rods, heavier fly line, bigger flies, bigger fish. And, when it comes to fly, uh, big flies. I mean, yeah, you do fish with a small fly, but mainly around here we use a big flies. So in the beginning was a really nice. I mean, of course, I have to learn how to use a 9 weight, a 10 weight. Those days when I started, mainly we were using a 10 weight and not 9 weight. And these days you scale down to 9 8 and 8 weight, pretty much what we're fishing for. So when I first started, and then I first got my striped bass, and I kind of put it together. A fly that this fellow that he showed me all about, he showed me was a Clausen minnow, and I left the deceiver because, I mean, those days, those were the only flies available. I left the deceivers and Clauses, and a slopside cod, which is a fly that done by this gentleman, Lou Tabery from Connecticut. And to me, that person, uh, it was the father of our Northeast striped bass fishery. Uh, we learned a lot from the fellow, from the gentleman. So basically, fishing for striped bass and mainly fishing for bluefish. Those fish are vicious. They have a teeth, so they bite, and especially the bluefish is one fly, one fish, and then you have to tie another one because the fly get totally destroyed. So can you imagine me, you, and everybody else that takes 15 minutes? Actually, those days it took me 15, 20 minutes and maybe more to do the perfect clouser minnow, to do the perfect lifted deceiver, the perfect slap side done with feathers and bobtail. All of a sudden, you hook a 10 pound of a bluefish and the fly get destroyed. Then you have to put another one. I said, wait a minute, this is not really working for me. This is not working for me. I'm wasting my time, more time to tie the fly and not really going fishing and catch fish. So that's when I start to put my brain to work. I said, well, problem, solution. What's the solution? The solution wasn't that easy because in reality, we all knew about Clauses, left to deceive, done only with natural materials. So what is the alternative over here? Those days, the only synthetic materials available, as far as I can remember, it was this H.T. Thompson Ultra Air, which is a nylon materials, very stiff, but it's a kind of crinky. That and the other one was the fish air, which is basically straight fibers used those days until these days used to do jig, used to do jigs. So those were the only synthetic materials available. So I said to myself, okay, let me try the Clauses and the Desira using these materials. It was working very well when it came to tie a sand eel, which is a thin body. As you know, a sand eel is a very thin. But our main bait fish in our area is the bunker. The bunker has a wide profile. And those flies, they are, anywhere from 3 inch to 12, 14 inch long. So divided the length by the girth is a big fly. So there was no way, no how that I could have done the basic bait fish that we needed with those kind of synthetic materials, which was the ultra air and the fish air. So it was very difficult to create that big silhouette, and the material was stiff. It wasn't really working the way I wanted to be worked. So, and that's when you start to banging your head on the wall to find the solution. But as we all know, you never give up. You got to keep on going until you find the solution. So,
Yeah.
so I was thinking about my father, and because I said to my father one day, I said, Dad, what happens when you have a problem you cannot resolve a problem? Well, my father said that, listen, it's not difficult to resolve the problem. I said, well, can you give him an idea how to handle this? I said, look, problem in life, everybody got problem. But in reality, that problem that everybody has, it's not a problem. I said, what are you talking about? I mean, you already confused me over here. Well, the problem is that when you cannot resolve the problem. I said, easy to say, but how am I going to handle that? Well, son, let me tell you something. Come here, sit down next to me. When something happens to you like that, you're gonna sit down. You could just kind of relax for a little bit. Then you start to thinking, okay, where the problem coming from and what could be the solution? And then you start to try and do at the same time. You fail, you do that again. You fail, you do that again. If you cannot find what you're looking for to resolve that problem, you keep on looking until you find it. And that's what happened to me. Basically, there was the problem to create the silhouette of those bunker, and I have to find the different materials. And that's when I resolved my problem.
What were the materials that were popular at the time, and what were the materials that ended up being your solution?
Well, as I said to you, the materials that was at my disposal and everybody's disposal those days, we're talking about late 80s, 1980s, was that material as a synthetic. That was it. There was nothing else.
That's
So, and
it.
then that's it. There was no other synthetic material. Zero. Nothing. Um, and then basically what you do, you start to looking around. Okay, what about this? What about that? What about if I do this? What about if I use that? And it's a trial and error. And then all of a sudden, when something clicked to you, that you're looking at something and you do this, gee, why I ever thought that before or earlier? And that's pretty much what happened. So the fiber, it came to me in a vision, and I find the fiber. So now I see these fibers and I see the solution because the fiber was a pliable and it wasn't as stiff, very pliable, soft, and the has the lustrous of the fiber just to give it the extra life into it, but not much. And I started looking at, and the fiber had nothing to do with the fly fishing. As we all know, maybe this nowadays there are probably, I would say, around 30%, maybe 40% of material that we use these days created for the fly fishing industry. Maybe. But in reality, everything else is not done for the fly fishing industry because, as you know, the fly fishing industry is not a big industry, very small. So now I see what I see, I got what I got, and I start to play with the original, what I call the peanut butter.
But what is it? Where did you get it?
Well, the name came after. I had no idea how to call these things. First, I want to see how this thing works. How can I deal with it and put together this materials into the hook to create the silhouette of the bunker? Okay. Again, trial and error, and then putting together this fly. And when I put in the water, first time I put them in the water, I mean, it looked good to me in my hand, but when I put into the water, it wasn't looking exactly what I was looking for. Because there is a vision, and I've been telling that people from day one when I was out there, especially when I used to do all those fly show. You needed to understand, you needed to pictures a fly. When you putting together a fly, you're constructing a fly, it doesn't matter what materials you're using, you need to pictures what the fly will look like into the water, not what it looks in front of you via device. If it's a device, it could be a beautiful fly. You do the movement that you're looking for, the color is there, it just look perfect to you. But then when you put in the water, the whole thing changes. I mean, I know, and everybody knows that. So I wasn't preaching that, tie the fly, but pictures what this fly looked like eventually into the water. So of course, in the beginning, it didn't look like nothing to me. And my first mistake was putting a lot of materials into the hook, right?
Was the material
So putting a lot,
a nylon? Was it solid? Was it fibrous?
it was a fibers. It's a very thin fibers.
Okay.
Okay,
And
and
where'd you get it from? Did you go to the local
uh,
sewing shop or toy maker?
I I went to a local like a toy shop and kind of this kids shop that they putting things together, and you see this things over here that I didn't even remember exactly what it was, but it was something looked good to me that it could do the job. And to make a long story short, once I put that fibers together and I put in the water, it was already, I knew the mistake I did. There was too much fibers into the hook. It was a floating and laying flat. That's no good. And start to scale down until he put the right amount of fiber into the hook until that fly lands into the water and it start to sink properly, straight down. And when you're retrieving, and doing the right movement. So that's when I got it. When I said, this is it. This is exactly what I'm looking for. So now I go fishing with it and I catch 3, 4, 5 striped bass, and I still have my fly over there. And then I catch, 3, 4 bluefish, which they basically destroy everything. And I still have at least half of the fly on the hook and still catching fish. I said, now we're talking over here. So, and again, you're going back and forth to see, okay, I have a good start over here. Now let me refine this. Let me figure out how to make sure that this thing is durable. Uh, it will ride perfectly the way I want it. The movement have to be perfect, and all I needed to the fly to really do the job for me. But obviously, those fibers I find it out there, they were not really doing exactly what I was doing, what I needed. And that's where the big problem became for me. It's a long story.
No,
It really,
this is
really,
why
it
we're here.
really is.
I want to hear all of it. Don't skimp on the details. Go for it.
So I say, okay, now I have these fibers. I am in the right. I'm going to the right directions. And now what? I need a better fiber than this. This is not really doing. And that was limited to 1, 2, 3 colors. That was it. This is no good. I needed more colors. I needed the fiber to be more supple. They needed to stay nice and straight. I needed to be this. I needed to be that. Well, now start, the headache, and you do start to do this. Gee. And now what? Now comes the really the part that was so difficult for me to deal with it. Especially my English wasn't not there yet. I could not go to the manufacturer that were doing these little fibers for that specific or whatever they were doing for, and explain to them what I needed, for and the specs that I wanted. I said, well, to make a long story short, basically they say, oh yeah, we can do anything you want. I said, great, you know. I needed to start at least 2 dozen calls. I said, sure. Um, then my other question was that how many pounds are we talking about it? Well, we can start you off, with 500 pounds per call. What? 500 pounds? I said, are you kidding me? Well, what do you think? you know, say 500 pounds. I say, it's going to take me a lifetime over here for me to use a 500 pound, because if you think about it, the amount of a fiber that goes into a fly, I mean, you cannot even put on a scale. But obviously, when you start to the process to manufacture, it's not just the fiber that goes into the hook to finish the fly, there is a waste. There is always a waste because the fibers have to be put in together, brushed, and they have to be cut to length. I mean, there is always a waste. So basically, it was one of those things: take it or leave it. Is it 500 pound or take it or take a walk? Basically, that's what it was. Going to the manufacturers and well, I didn't have that much of a choice, and to me it was a really scary. Um, I said, how am I going to do this? Because we're talking about a lot of money, serious money. And what about if this whole thing is not going to work? And then you just make your mind and say, okay, you know what? Is do it or you don't do it. And I've always been determined in my life to do what I believe it. I believe it what I had in my hand because there was nothing out there like it, nothing. And I say I believe it because I proved the point to myself. I proved the point to all the friends and people that I knew about this fly, the peanut butter. In fact, when I started with that, I opened my little fly shop in town.
Oh.
Oh yes.
Wait. I have a question before we even go there. So if they had said to you, we can create 10 pounds of it, would you have gone into business? Or at that point, were you strictly looking at it from a personal use and not a commercial venture?
At the point, it was a business because it wasn't at 10 pounds, it was a 500 pound.
But had they said to you, we can do it in 10 pounds, would you have started a business, or did you start the business because it was 500 pounds?
I started the business because it was a 500 pound. Because somehow, even if it's gonna take me, 10 years to use, let's say, a red colors, I'm gonna have to do it. I have no choice. I need the red, and I gotta have a 500 pound of red. Obviously, there is a colors that will take me 1 year. There is a colors that will take me 3 months. There is a colors that might take me in 5 years to, reorder. But it's a huge investment. And that's why I got in business because of that, because I couldn't have done anything less than 500 pounds.
This is so cool.
And
So
then,
the fly shop,
yeah, of course.
were you still chefing at that point, or had you stopped being a chef when you went down the fly shop?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was, because I opened the fly shop, and I was basically open the fly shop when I had my days off, or I was open my shop when, let's say I have, most of the time I had a night shift as a chef. So in the morning I was open until probably 12 o'clock, if I remember correctly, and 12 o'clock I closed the door. See you tomorrow morning. That was it. But you know, you do what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you believing on something, you believe in something, you'll do it. You sacrifice yourself, and I was very lucky to have my wife to support me, because if my wife would not support me on this project, I don't think there will be, EP flies these days. I gotta be honest. There will not be EP flies, period. Because the wife was very supportive. She was working at the same time as well, and the kids around. You have to taking care of the kids. The way it is. You're a mother now. I don't have to tell you that. And you have a necessity. So I was working as a chef at the fly shop, and the money invested into that was money I didn't have at those days. So it was quite tricky. Let's put it this way. And that's when I got started with that, with the original EP Fibres. So that was back when I first started working with that was, I would say, 1989. That's right, 1989. And then the 90 comes in 91, when I started to put, those flies that start to show out there going fishing in Long Island. And I have to admit it, I have to tell you that it wasn't easy in the beginning, especially when I started to do the fly show back 94, and around 1994, 93. That's when I started to do the fly show. Me coming from the middle of nowhere with this line of peanut butter. People say peanut butter. They say, where did you come out with this damn peanut butter? What is that? What are you talking about? You know, name is a name, you know what I mean? So I decided to call it peanut butter because my kids, as a kids, they love a peanut butter. You know, you put a little gel on top and it does. You know, I have to admit, I like myself that. I like to make a nice sandwich of peanut butter and gel to take with me on the boat when I go fishing or when I go trout fishing as well. I say, okay, peanut bunker, that's the correct name. Peanut bunker, peanut butter. So it sounds good. And, you know, this fly, you know, this fish like this fly, so it seems to be tasty to them. All right, peanut butter it is. So that's how the name got started in the peanut butter. And then, as I say, in the beginning, it was very difficult. Difficult because the people then did not assimilate the idea to say to themselves, well, there is not only one way in life, there is many ways to achieve, uh, you know, the goal that you're looking for. And, you know, for the most part, people are uh, it's very difficult for them to change when they have a, you know, that kind of habit and that traditionalist. And I understand, don't get me wrong. I do understand. I mean, feathers and and, uh, and deer hair and bucktail, whatever you want, they're still catching a lot of fish. Absolutely. I mean, we all know that. But for the kind of fishing I was doing those days here in the Long Island Sound, it wasn't not working for me. It wasn't not working for me. Tying one fly and then get one fish and then I have to put a new fly, another fish, and a fly. No, I said this definitely is not working for me.
Yeah, I figured you probably got some pushback from the purists. But what about your shop? Did you sell rods or did you just sell fibers? Were you selling custom flies? What were you selling at that time?
Well, at that time for me, done the investment in those fibers, there was no money to carry the heavy duty stuff, reels, rods, waders, and so I kind of dedicated myself to have a fly shop for the fly type.
Oh, cool. All
Okay,
right.
it was a very, you know, it was a less money to be invested. And as you know, people when they walk into a fly shop and they look at the walls and all the material is there, the colors is over there. It's like a candy shop. You know, you buy in reality materials, things that you never use it. It's true. I mean, I was the same thing when I used to go to the fly shop. Used to buy materials that I don't even know if I say I will never use it, but it looks good to me. I like it. So there it is. So basically, yes, I kind of dedicated myself looking to the flight time, uh, whatever I needed for the flight time. And I remember those days, the couple of fly shop I used to go. Let's say that you were looking for a specific air dubbing, you added maybe 12 colors. But airline dubbing those days, let's say they used to make about, I don't know, 32, 34 different colors. So my idea was that, okay, if I carry this specific dubbing and there is a 40 colors available, I will hang it on the wall 40 colors so that when the customer comes and they look at the colors that he needed, is there. Because if it's not there, they're gonna be upset the first time, upset the second time, the third time they might not come back because you don't have what they're looking for. So again, let's assume that they needed the yellow, but they see over there the beautiful olive brown. They like the colors. They might not need it, so they grab it because they see over there. So that's the way it is, and it's good. I mean, I would say it's nice because those are our toys. You know what I mean? In the fly tying family, we like to do that. We want to have everything that is available, which is great.
Now, you really, in my opinion anyway, found widespread fame with your brushes, with the dubbing brushes. Can you tell me the
Okay.
story of how those came to be? I've got a million questions for you.
All right. The brushes. Well, once I set up the peanut butterfly line family, whatever we want to call it, basically from the fly, it was a northeast fly. Then I start to migrate it down to warm water, like Florida. In Florida, you need a different bait fish, especially when you're fishing for permit, when you're fishing for tarpon, redfish, bonefish, and so forth and so on. So those are different areas require different pattern. So I was lucky enough for me using those fibers to be able to create basically a crab pattern or a shrimp pattern, right? For me, it was easy to put together the fly. It will take maybe 15, 20 minutes, whatever, to do a crab fly. A crab fly, in my opinion, doesn't matter how you're doing. I have a little bit experience about that. It doesn't matter how you're doing, doesn't matter what kind of corner you want to cut it. It's gonna take you a good 20 minutes, easy, because a crab pattern is very elaborate flies to tie. If you wanna the fly that really do the job for you. So it was a little bit time consuming to tie the flies. Even for me, producing the fly, it was time consuming. And it wasn't really doing good for me. So at some point, for the brush, I going back those days, I saw a fellow in Europe that he was fooling around with brushes for trout. Uh, but it was a kind of crude in terms of what he was doing. And say, you know what, it's a good idea, but I think I can do better. I think that I can apply that to whatever I needed to do it in terms of the brushes. So I say it will be easier to wrap these materials in a hook than just apply the fibers into a hook, right? So, and then of course, you're starting to do the trial and error. You have to find the right wire, the right diameter. You have to be stainless steel for salt water. It cannot be copper or it cannot be any other materials. You have to be a stainless steel. You have to be a certain diameter. It cannot be too thick. It cannot be too thin. Otherwise, it will break. So that's when I started to put those brushes together for salt water. And when I did that, the first brush I did was a streamer brush. We're talking about, I would say, 96. Yeah, 96,
Oh, that
95.
early.
Yeah,
How
that
did you
early.
do it? Obviously, they didn't have the machine at that time. Did you have a couple
The,
vices or?
no, there was some, there was some kind of, I put together a machine. Uh, with some kind of drill, and that we didn't work it, and then some kind of spinning device that I put it together, and you have to design that specific tool to design and do that, because the brushes that we manufacture, they're about 10-inch long. Okay. And it took me a little time to perfect it, but I did it. So once I did the first streamer brush, and I realized that, wait a minute, now if I want to tie this crab, it will take me less time. Now I can cut the time on it to do that specific crab or a shrimp, right? So that was basically the idea, for the brush. Because even those days I was doing demo, there was no videos, there was no YouTube, there was no telephone, there was nothing. I mean, nothing. If you have to do a video, it was going to cost you a lot of money to do it, and it was not the video that really you were looking for. So all the demonstration I did it to do those crab pattern and shrimp pattern without using the brush, people, they kind of say, yeah, it looks nice, they're good, they will catch fish, but I cannot spend couple hours or 1 hour to tie one crab. And they were right, absolutely right, because it's whatever you do or whatever I did when it comes to the fly tying, for what I started, people, they were kind of intimidated because it was something totally new, something totally different. So the technique how to put the fibers in a hook, it took people, a very long time to assimilate it. But in reality, uh, it's not difficult to do it. It's like anything else. If you don't practice, you're never going to be able to do it. You have to practice to do, in a way that will be easy for you. So I say, well, people still don't get it, or people, they don't have the patience, or people, they don't have the time. You got to go to work and this and that. So that's when I come up with the idea of the brushes. I say, okay, let's put these materials in a wire, winding these things into the hook, put a couple of legs, use a little marabou if you want for tail, or put a little rabbit strip for the claw or whatever, and put something, and put a couple of eyes, and put a lead eyes, and then here you have the crab. So basically, the first brush was created for me to do and produce those crab fly and shrimp. That's how that happened. So that was the streamer brush was the first brush I did it. So do you know today how many brushes EP Flies is able to offer to the market? Colors and sizes?
No, how many?
Can you tell me? I can guess, at least, help me out or guess me.
97.
You guess me. No, now it's too much. We offer 36 brushes as of today.
So, because you've got the EP fibers, but you've also got, I've seen different materials. They're almost like a squiggly plastic. And I've seen them in 10 million colors.
Which materials are you referring to?
Let me grab it. One sec. I've got my whole dubbing brush box here. Most of them are in Canada, but is this, yeah, EP steel egg brush. There's these little...
Okay, right. Those are basically micro rubber legs.
Right.
That you apply into the brush. And originally, when obviously when you started one brush, like I did for the original one, the streamer brush, and then I saw those little legs available in the market. Now I add a couple of rubber legs on it. You give them more life, more appearance. So if you think about it, you're wrapping the brush in a hook to create a crab pattern. Now you have those little legs coming popping up from everywhere, create a motion. They bring the life to a life. Even if you have the fly sitting in the bottom of on rocks or grass or whatever, and you don't move the fly. If you look at the flies, those are legs. They're kind of moving. They have that kind of life, natural life when they get into the water. So I say, well, that is actually a good addition to that specific brush. And then after that, of course, many others come up.
But that's what I mean. I feel like, I'm looking at, I only have a tenth of my fly tying stuff here. And I'm looking at 12 or 13 different brushes here. So what, and just for people who are watching this on YouTube right now, I'll hold up one of the brushes so that people can get a visual of what I'm talking about. But, so is it 36 total brushes that you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought it was more than that.
Well, 36 different brushes, just the style of the brush. You multiply it by the colors.
That's what I'm talking.
Up to the.
So that's yes. My question. How many SKUs do you have?
Oh boy, I don't know. Let's say that every brush we have around 2 SKUs. Giving and taking, and so you multiply 36 by 24, 26. That give a number right there. A lot of SKUs.
A lot, yeah. It's great because they come in different sizes, colors, materials.
Yeah.
They are amazing. But I want to talk to you about how that all came to be, because I remember when they hit the market and went really mainstream. It would have been 10 years after you had first created them. Did it take a while for them to really kick off?
Yes, it did. It did because again, when you have something new, we're talking about those days. Our days, people are angry to see what's new for this year, what's new for this year, and in reality, there isn't really much new these days anymore, because I believe that how much more new stuff you need. I mean, in my opinion, we reached the top. Or creating a new material. I mean, when I mean new in the true sense, of the world, that there is nothing really that new, because what happened is, you saw that through the years, we reached the point to have everything at our disposal, especially when I started with the P fibers and then the brushes. The P fibers came with different other synthetic materials along with the brushes. At some point, how much more really can create it? We reaching the top. You're repeating pretty much the same thing. So now that we reached the point, we're shifting. People, they're shifting towards more creating something that is not a fly anymore. There is a definition of a fly. At some point, you have to ask yourself, wait a minute, is this a fly, or is this a lure, or is this a jig, or is this a fly?
What's your definition? Because the purists would have been asking you this years ago.
I have to say this, in my opinion, and I tell you my honest opinion. When I came out with the fibers, the P fibers, and do the fly with the P fibers, I understood that time that putting a synthetic in a hook is already, we are 1-2 step away from the true fly, because that is a natural materials. The purpose of a fly that will fool the fish, right? If it's in fresh water or salt water, should be done with natural materials. Okay, that is my 2 cents of opinion. So now we're using the synthetic, in this case, 30 years ago, the P fibers. Yes, it will create that silhouette that I wanted. Yes, it will give me the motion I wanted. Yes, it will give me everything I wanted the fly to be when it comes into the water, give it the action. But is that a 100% fly? A true fly? Okay. If we go back to the history about the fly, not even a saltwater fly it should be a fly. A fly was, if we go back to the history of a fly, it's done just for trout, right? That's what it was. So everybody has his own opinion, which is great. It's absolutely fantastic. And it should be that way. And we should keep on doing what we're doing. Because I've been saying that from day one, especially these days, there is so much talented out there creating flies that they are fantastic. You know what I mean? It's fantastic because today we have the tools to do that, to create those flies. But if we go back 30 years ago when there wasn't nothing, that's a different story. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
it's
a totally
interesting to hear
different,
it from
a
you.
different story. So there you have it. You know what I mean? So
What about your EP shrimp? I've got buddies out here who swear that it's the only fly that works for them out in Sydney Harbor.
um, what can I say? If it works for them, I mean, it's great, fantastic. What is that you want to know about the shrimp,
How?
the shrimp dubbing?
Why does it? Why does it fish different? What about it makes it different to all the other saltwater flies that are on the market, or to some of the other saltwater flies on the market?
I honestly I don't know because uh, the shrimp dubbing that was first what I did the shrimp dubbing, and then I was using a dubbing to create the loop and put the fibers on it, wrap around the hook, and then got my shrimps, and then it turned to the brush. Again, the idea was that mainly my idea about the brush was that okay, I'm very capable to do a loop and insert the materials, spin it, and do that. For me, it's easy to do it. But for the majority of the fly tire, those days until these days, they don't have the patience, the ability to do that. It's kind of time consuming, difficult. But that's why I created the DP brushes. But going back to the shrimp dubbing, well, maybe it's a combination of the materials involved into that created the brush in a way that those fishes see what they're looking for. Okay, and the combination of that, I'll tell you, there's no secret on that. Is the EP fibers, the silky fibers, and there is an additional amount of Angora goat, which is a natural material.
Gotcha.
So here we go back. Here we go back again to the question you asked to me. What is the definition of a fly? Okay, is a fly or is a lure? So it's a question mark.
Yeah.
So
It's
so
it's
I,
we'll leave
so
that as an
pro-
open question.
yeah, we live in again, you know what I mean. We have to be open to any of this question. To me, when I hear somebody, no, this is the way it is, and that's wrong. You just be open to anything. So going back to the shrimp, whatever those fish they see on your harbor in Sydney Harbor, and I know all about it because I'm getting email every so often. I killed those fish today. We had a fantastic time today, and this and that. It makes me feel great. That means I put together something that works.
So did you design that pattern? And on that same question, how many fly patterns are you guys selling now?
Uh, Gee, that's a really tough one. I don't have a really number on me, but I would say probably we have um, about 120
Oh
different
my
patterns
gosh,
these
that's
days.
a lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot. And we like to, when I do a flies, I rarely discontinue the fly, even if it's not really sell the way we want to be sell, let's say. It's quite interesting that to say, let's say I put it together a shrimp pattern this year, and I know that shrimp is working for bonefish or permit or whatever. And because I go fishing, I catch fish. That's what I do. If I don't have the time to go fishing and to test the fly, I have friends out there, people that I send the fly, they'll do that for me, and so forth and so on. So, but it's quite interesting. Let's say that I put the flies together this year, and these are not selling the way we're looking at, because I think mainly because people now, they used to know the flies that they catch fish, and they're very confident. So I said, why do I want to, even try the new patterns when I have this pattern? I will catch the fish. So, and then, but I put them on the side. I'm not discontinued, and then it's like I can't even explain myself. Let's say like 2 years later, even sometimes 3 years later, it's like a boom. You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
cannot make enough. We cannot make enough to just supply the demand of that species. I say, in fact, we were talking about this with my son a couple of days ago. I said we got to be ready for that. I mean, that's the way it's been working for all these years for me, and I cannot explain why is happening, but it's been happening. It's been happening. So yeah, I would say that we have about 120 patents out there, and you know, a, every year I put maybe one or two new in the market. I am thinking in a different way. Any other manufacturer that every year they have to put so many new patents out there, I don't see the need for it. At this point, we are very confident that the product that we put them out there, people are very happy, and we have a reputation that, I mean, it's a reputation that make us very proud. Uh, Quality is number one thing that we really care the most.
Yeah, it's
If the
unwavering.
qual
You've stayed
if the
consistent.
qual Yeah, if the quality is not there, flies or materials or brush or whatever, we're not putting on the market, period. And the best compliment I'm getting from consumers, Enrico, I gotta tell you this. If I buy, let's say, if I buy a peanut butter in the city, in New York City, Urban Island, Fifth Avenue, and I buy a peanut butter, let's say, in Idaho, uh, you know, it's unbelievable. It's same fly. There is no difference between the fly that is in Idaho or the fly I find down there in the Miami or the one I find in New York, because it's very important to us to keep that way, and gain trust from the consumer. It's a hike, and to lose that, it takes nothing, nothing. I'm telling you, we do pay a lot of attention to that.
Awesome. How many pounds of fiber do you go through now a year?
Let me see. As an average, a couple of £1,000.
Are you still with the same supplier, or did you end up branching out and going elsewhere?
Uh, we branch it to a couple of suppliers right now. Someone specialized for one specific fibers, someone is specific for another specific fibers, as well color. And for us, it's very important to have the consistency on the fibers. I mean, I wanted to emphasize this. We haven't changed the fibers from day one. We haven't changed it at all, because they say that if he ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Yep.
So, and again, going back through my years, and for what I did it 30 years ago, and being the first one with the P fibers, and I have to say, very proudly, nobody can take that away from me. Nobody. Being the first one doing that, we want to keep it that way. The colors is there, the consistency is there, the fibers are there the same. Because if I don't even want to think about it to change it, try to make it better. Why? You're really doing the job the way it's supposed to be done, and we're gonna keep it that way. We're
Is
gonna
and
keep it that way.
even the wire. And for so many years, I've used scissors to cut the wire, but you don't have to, do you? You've got a wire that's light enough; you can just jiggle it and it breaks.
You can jiggle, you can break it. But what I will say that if you want to use the scissor, in reality, a lot of people really not. I'm not saying they don't know how to use their tools, but they don't think. I see people using the scissor and snip the wire, with the points of the of the scissor. Ouch! Don't do that. If you want to, if you're working with your scissor in your hand the way I do, I never leave my scissor and my bobbin. Scissor and bobbin is always in my hand. Period. So if you want to cut the wire, don't use the tip of the scissor. Go all the way down here, because you will never use this to trim the fly. You follow me?
Yep.
Yeah. At the end, you never use that to trim the fibers or the whatever materials you use it.
No, it's a wire cutter.
Yeah. Oh, wire cutter. You know what? I have one of the best tools available there. It's a nail clipper. It cost me 99 cents to the
Exactly.
pharmacy. That's what I use it. I've been using that forever.
Amen.
And that's
Same
it.
thing.
Amen. And you know what? After 4 or 5 years that doesn't clip anymore, I go buy another 99. Well, these days it's not 99 cents anymore, but maybe it's a dollar
A
fifty.
dollar
But
99.
still,
Yeah.
a dollar 99. But still,
I'm
but still.
so I'm so happy that we sat down to do this, because I had no idea that you have such a long history, or that this went back so far. I thought that I knew you started in the fly fishing industry. I figured probably the 90s, but I thought that the brushes didn't really come out till mid 2000s. So this is really cool to hear. What's next for you? What are you planning on doing now?
Uh, I want to retire. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, absolutely. You deserve it. What's going to happen with the business? What's the
Uh,
strategy?
well, the strategy is very simple. I'm very lucky that my son Daniel and my daughter Vanessa, they took over EP Flies. So the future is there, and everything is in place to turn over the key, basically, to both of them. Especially, my son has been with EP Flies now for the past 4 years almost. Vanessa just came aboard this past year. And I have to say that Daniel is handling EP Flies beautifully. No problem, much better than I can, and I do. Now we are in the process. For the past couple of years, I've been in the process. Basically, Daniel to go over with me and handling the factory. Because handling the factory it's not easy, especially when we have to deal with many employees, and we want to keep, you know, the quality of the product. It's very important not to change that. And this is what we have in place for the future. And hopefully, in the next year or so, I will be retired. But my son, my daughter, my wife, they say, you will never retire. I have to admit it. They are right. They are right about that. I will be still involved because always, you know, ideas crossing my mind. I will say that I would like to stick with the fly. I will not deviate myself into those other patterns, whatever we want to call it. I'm gonna stick, even if he's involved on fibers, and that's pretty much what we do. Also, yes, I want to retire because we open a lodge down in Mexico as a family business. This is another part of our business. We have a fishing lodge in Campeche, Mexico. I like to spend. I've been spending a lot of time down there in Mexico. It's a lovely place. It's a unique and different place. It's a really top notch. It's quality place like EP product. Let's put it this way. I've been spent actually. I'm planning to spend a little bit more time from over there, and that's what I really want to do. I'm gonna be still involved. I don't believe I will be doing shows anymore. It's been now, I think, 4 years I haven't done a show. But Daniel and Vanessa, they're gonna be do some shows, just to put their face in front of the people as a EP flies, and that's pretty much the future of EP. And I hopefully we keep on doing, only the good things we've been doing until these days.
I'm going to link up EP obviously in the link, but what about the lodge? Where can people find more information about your fishing lodge?
The fishing lodge is a link to our website, and the name of the lodge is Casa Clorinda, which it takes over my mother's name. My mother's name was Clorinda. Is a really lovely place. Again, as I said before, it's an old colonial house brought up to speed nowadays, and it's not a big lodge. We can handle up to 8 people. We don't want more than that because we want to make sure to provide the service and the quality, uh, for what people really expecting from us. That's pretty much it. But the link is to that, and I will have it in Daniel actually get in touch with you so that you guys can exchange whatever information you might need. It
Sounds great.
is that right?
That sounds awesome. No, I look forward to meeting him, and I'm so, like I said, I'm so happy to learn about your history. It far surpassed what I had imagined. So thank you for taking the time to do this.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Hopefully, I will see you out there in some place one of these days. I haven't seen you in a long time.
I know it's been
Right?
years.
Yes, I think last time I saw you was in Denver. You're talking about several years ago.
It's more than several.
Yeah, more than several. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
don't be a stranger. Let's stay in touch, and maybe and let me know if you get to Australia. I think you'd really love it down here.
Believe it or not, my Australia is in my checklist. I have a couple of friends in Australia that I would like to visit one of these days, and if I will go down that way, I will certainly let you know.